We live during a time when every man and his dog is self-diagnosing themselves with ADHD and autism. Men used to say, I have an all or nothing mentality, in order to try and justify their boom and bust cycle and perpetual inconsistency. See, our emotional brain, our limbic system, our chimp, is constantly trying to seek comfort and familiarity. And it does this in multiple ways, but one common strategy that it uses is to normalize distraction, procrastination, putting things off, being lazy, etc. And then it will come up with a logical or noble sounding justification that others relate to in order to validate why you're acting in that way. It prevents you from fulfilling the promises you make to yourself, and then it makes you feel better about it. I have an all or nothing mentality sounds noble because you're convincing yourself that your period of laziness and procrastination is somewhat balanced by locking in, grit, determination, and hard effort. Nowadays, it's a societal norm for blokes to say that they have ADHD like it's some tongue-in-cheek claim that is widely accepted. Your concentration, focus, mood, energy, and enthusiasm is your biggest asset. Your ability to get the same amount or more done in less time is what will enable you to live the life that you want. Be more present with your family, train more, have more fun, build a successful business without it consuming your entire life. Now, in the first two videos, we built the foundation. Episode 1, sleep, the 5 rules that determine whether you wake up restored or whether you're running with a ball and chain strapped to your ankle. Episode 2, the morning wakefulness routine, the 3 behaviors in the first 90 minutes after waking that activate your brain and body correctly. So at this point, hopefully, you've put some work in, you've slept well, you've got your morning light, you delayed your caffeine, you moved your body, you're awake, you're alert, you sit down at your desk to begin your first focused work block, and then for some reason your brain doesn't cooperate. You might be physically there, present, but you're mentally somewhere else. Maybe you're still carrying the confrontational conversation you had with your partner the night before, the chaos of getting the kids ready in the morning, the news headline that you saw or heard, the email you know is sitting in your inbox, or the conversation that you're dreading having later today. You've walked directly from home life into a focused work block, but your brain didn't make the same crossing with you. It's just not there. This video is about 2 things that sit between the morning routine and actual productive work. The first is internal, the second is external. Make sure you watch until the end as we discuss the 2 and how they work together. Part 1, the internal, is the transition routine or the pillar pivot. Most men I work with in Op Rebuild are devoted fathers who want to do the best for their partner and kids. So when I introduce the pillar pivot to them, their default is to prioritize this as they transition from taking their work hat off and putting their dad and partner hat on. They already understand the concept of a transition routine, at least in this direction. When you finish work for the day and you're about to walk into your home, into the presence of your family, you ultimately know you need to shift something. You can't bring the energy of a tense meeting into the dinner table. You can't carry a deadline pressure into a conversation with your kids. So we build a ritual, a few minutes at the desk before you leave the office to have a moment with pen and paper, preferably, a change of clothes or something else like a splash of cold water on the face the moment you walk through the door to physically anchor yourself into a new environment, your home. This is a deliberate mental shift. You leave the work version of yourself at the office and step into the present, calm, caring, empathetic, affectionate version when you enter your home. And this is widely understood. And as far as the blokes that I work with, it's also widely practiced. You probably do some version of it already, maybe even without knowing. But almost nobody does the reverse. Nobody builds a transition routine from home to work. Now, the assumption is that because you're physically at your desk, because you've opened your laptop and you've walked into your office, your brain should be ready to perform. But the brain does not switch states by default, at least not in an optimal fashion. And the emotional residue of the morning doesn't just evaporate because you've decided it's time to be productive. That residue has weight. Every piece of that residue occupies working memory. It's taking up space that should be available for deep cognitive work, be that management type work, such as communication, administration, ticking boxes, things that need to get done. Or perhaps, more importantly, the creative type work, such as problem solving or the creation of new ideas. Most blokes do nothing. They just try and push through. They open their laptop, start working, and hope that the fog will eventually clear. Sometimes it does, maybe after an hour or so, and sometimes it doesn't. And the entire morning passes at half capacity. The solution is a short, deliberate transition routine performed immediately before starting a focused work block. It takes just 60 to 90 seconds, and it works because it acknowledges something important. You're not one fixed self. You're a collection of different versions of you. The father, the partner, the son, the brother, the friend, the leader. And each version operates from a different set of attributes and priorities. The transition routine is the simple act of deliberately activating the right one. So, identity priming. Who do you need to be? The core of the routine is a single question, and the wording matters. The question is not, what do I need to do today, as this just produces a to-do list. And a to-do list is cognitive load. It's a reminder of everything you haven't yet done. It's the opposite of what you need in this moment. The question is, who do I need to be during this next work block? And the answer is not a list of tasks. It's a set of adjectives, 3 to 5 words, maybe more if appropriate, that describe the identity you're stepping into. This identity priming, the deliberate activation of a specific neural network, a specific set of associations and behavioral patterns, emotional states tied to a particular version of yourself. Now, let me make this concrete by showing you the contrasting examples. When a father transitions from work to home at the end of a day, the identity stepping into might be described as calm, affectionate, empathetic, understanding, present. Those are the attributes of a good father and a good partner. They're relational, they're open, emotionally available. They're about receiving your child's energy, your partner's stories, the chaos and warmth of life at home. But now look at the reverse. When that same bloke transitions from home to work, the identity he needs to step into is likely something closer to being disciplined, punctual, effective, productive, decisive, focused. These are the attributes of a high-performing professional. They're task-oriented, closed, efficient. They're about output, producing high-quality work, making decisions, protecting time, focus, and attention. The two identities are not in conflict with one another. They serve different purposes. The problem isn't that you're different people in different contexts. The problem is that you're trying to be both at the same time. Or worse, you're carrying the home identity into the work block and wondering why you can't focus. So here's how to do it. The 5 steps. The routine itself is not complicated, nor is it time-consuming. It's deliberate. Step 1, stop. Before you open your laptop or turn into the first task, pause. Don't rush into the work. Close your eyes if it helps. Breathe. Step 2, ask the question, who do I need to be during this next work block? Say it in your head or out loud. The question itself is the switch. It tells your brain that you're changing contexts now. If you can, write it down, because putting pen to paper taps into your rational brain and it slows down your thinking. Step 3, name the identity. Identify 3 to 5 adjectives that describe the ideal version of you for the next 90 minutes to 3 hours or so. Disciplined, decisive, sharp, creative, whatever the task demands. Say them out loud if you can. Writing them down is better. The specificity matters. Step 4, visualize the state. Take 30 seconds to picture yourself operating from that identity. See yourself calm under pressure, deciding quickly, producing work that you're proud of. The brain follows the image that you give it. If you give it no image, it will default to whatever state you happen to be in when you sat down. Step 5, enter the work block. Open your work and begin. That's genuinely all there is to it, 60 to 90 seconds or thereabouts. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but what you're actually doing in that 90 seconds is deliberately activating specific neural network, a set of associations, behaviors, and emotional states tied to that identity and part of your day. The brain follows the identity that you prime. If you prime nothing, You just sit down and start working with whatever mental state you happen to arrive with. You're leaving your cognitive performance to chance. And chance usually lands somewhere around half capacity. Part 2, this is the external, environmental design. So you've done the transition routine, ideally. You've primed your identity. You're clear on who you need to be during this next work block. You sit down at your desk, and then your environment either supports the state you just entered or it dismantles it. Environmental design is not about aesthetics or how things look. It's not about having a clean, modern workspace or an expensive setup. It's about friction, the deliberate arrangement of your physical and digital space to make focus the path of least resistance and distraction the path of most resistance. Your environment is either an ally or an enemy, and it defaults to enemy because the modern workspace, the laptop, the phone, the notifications, the open tabs, the visual clutter, it's not designed for focus, it's designed for engagement and distraction. Every element of it is competing for your attention, and if you don't deliberately engineer the space to protect your focus, those elements will win. Now your phone, out of sight, out of reach, out of mind. This is the single highest impact change that you can make to your workspace straight away, and it costs nothing. There's a reliable finding in cognitive psychology research that most people don't know about. The mere presence of a smartphone, even face down, on silent, even completely untouched, reduces available cognitive capacity. Your brain devotes a measurable portion of its attentional resources to the act of not checking the phone. The portion of your attention is no longer available for your work. The phone doesn't have to ring, it doesn't have to buzz, it just has to be visible or within reach. Your brain knows that it's there, and it's expending energy to try and resist it. The solution to this is not willpower, the solution is distance. Willpower is a finite resource that depletes across the day. Distance is an environmental constraint that doesn't require willpower at all. So during focused work, the phone should be in another room if possible. If that's not, if you're in like a open plan space or a coffee shop, for example, it goes in a drawer or it goes in your bag, out of your line of sight, and it stays on do not disturb with only genuinely critical contacts allowed through, such as partner, your kids perhaps, a specific emergency contact, no one else. Now you might worry that business partners, team members, colleagues, customers might not get through to you. But don't let this be another noble sounding excuse to justify a behavior that you know is getting in your way. If the people that need to contact you about something important, they'll leave a message, they'll leave a voicemail. Ultimately, if you were on another call or in another meeting, you wouldn't be able to answer your phone anyway. Not answering calls immediately or not responding to messages as they come in is a good way of setting boundaries with customers, clients, team members, partners. Your time is valuable. What you are doing is complex and it requires your attention and focus. You have to demonstrate to others that your time, your focus, your concentration are important to you. And one way to do this is by demonstrating that you're not available at their beck and call. The key here is that it does not sit on the desk. It does not sit in your pocket. It does not sit face up next to your keyboard, silently draining your attention for hours. Put it away, out of sight. Noise, the right kind of silence. Now, complete silence is not always optimal for cognitive work. The brain doesn't actually need silence. What it needs is the absence of unpredictable, intermittent sound. This could be a conversation in the next room. It could be a door opening and closing, a notification ping, an email alert. These are what researchers call distraction events. Each distraction event can take roughly 15 to 25 minutes to fully recover from in terms of your deep cognitive refocus. Your brain has not returned to the depth it was at before the interruption. So the goal is not silence. The goal is predictable, uniform input, something your brain can habituate to and stop processing consciously. Now you have options depending on your preferences. White noise, for example, equal power across all frequencies, good for masking intermittent sound. Brown noise, deeper, lower frequency emphasis, which a lot of people find less harsh and more conducive to sustained focus. Instrumental music, film titles, ambient, electronic, lo-fi, classical. The one rule with music is no lyrics. Lyrics activate the language centers of your brain, and those language centers compete with the same neural resources that you need for writing, reading, or analytical work. Binaural beats are also an option. The evidence is somewhat mixed on this, but some people find that 40 Hz gamma range beats subjectively helpful for focus. The principle that matters is the same regardless of which one that you pick. Choose one and stick with it. The brain habituates to consistency. If you're constantly switching between different sounds, you're creating the very unpredictability that you're trying to eliminate altogether. Temperature. Cooler is sharper. There's an optimal temperature range for cognitive performance, and it's roughly around 20 to 22 degrees Celsius, or I think that's around 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Above 24 or 25, sustained attention and working memory begin to decline measurably, and the mechanism is partly physiological. Heat promotes drowsiness and shifts your nervous system toward a more parasympathetic, restful state, and partly about comfort. Being slightly cool keeps you more alert. So not so cold that you're physically uncomfortable and distracted, but cool enough that your body is working just slightly to maintain its temperature. If you control the thermostat in your workspace, or perhaps the workspace is yours and therefore you have control and want others to perform better, then aim for the low 20s. If you don't, then a small desk fan can create a local microclimate, if you like. It sounds small, minor, but temperature is one of those background variables that either supports your focus or undermines it for hours without you noticing. Lighting, bright and cool. This is the inverse of what you want before bed. In the evening, you want dim, warm, amber, red spectrum, low to the ground light to signal to your brain that melatonin should start rising. During focused work, you want the opposite. Bright, cool spectrum, roughly 4,000 to 5,000 Kelvin. Cool white light promotes alertness. It suppresses any residual melatonin that might still be circulating from the night before, which matters especially on overcast days or in windowless rooms where your brain doesn't have a clear daylight signal. Remember, going back to the previous video, it's crucially important that you don't rely on these lights in your workspace alone. Ideally, you've already been outside for 15 minutes or so to get natural light long before you've even started work. Now, that being said, when you are doing work, natural daylight through a window is the ideal. If that's not available, then a bright LED panel or a desk lamp positioned to avoid glare on your screen is the next best option. The goal with this, of course, is pretty simple. You're just trying to signal to your brain that this is the active, alert, awake phase of the day, not a transitional state. Desk hygiene and the one screen rule. Now, visual clutter competes for attentional resources the same way that inconsistent sound does. Every object in your visual field is something that your brain must actively choose not to attend to. So a stack of unopened mail, yesterday's coffee mug, the book you're halfway through, a post-it note from last week. Each of these items is a micro decision, and your brain is making those decisions continuously, below the level of conscious awareness. The cumulative effect across hours is massive, never mind weeks. Clear the desk of everything not required for the current work block. If it doesn't serve the task in front of you, it doesn't belong in your visual field. Single monitor where possible. Now, multiple monitors are sold as productivity tools, but for deep cognitive work, they often function as distractions, an extra visual field constantly demanding your attention. If you genuinely need a second screen for reference material, then of course use it, but the default assumption should be that one task, one screen, one focus. And of course, close everything that you're not actively using. Every open tab, every minimized window, every red dot on an app icon, your brain registers these. You might not be consciously thinking about them, but they're occupying attentional bandwidth. Digital friction. Make distraction hard. The physical environment matters, but the digital environment matters even more because that's where the work actually happens. And the principle is the same as with the phone. Don't rely on willpower. Add friction. Block the internet entirely if the task doesn't require it. Apps like Opal, Freedom, or Cold Turkey can disable connectivity for a set period. The mild inconvenience of having to re-enable it, open the app, turning it off, waiting is often enough to prevent the impulsive moment of checking LinkedIn, Twitter, or refreshing a news page. Remove bookmarks and shortcuts to distracting sites. So for example, if you habitually type the letters TW and autocorrect changes it to Twitter, delete that autocorrect entry. Delete the bookmark, adding one extra step between the impulse and the action itself. Use a separate browser or browser profile for deep work. One browser has your email, your social media, your news sites bookmarked. The other has nothing but the tools required for the actual work. And this is a clean slate approach. It removes temptation rather than relying on moment-to-moment self-control. And try and disable all non-critical notifications on every device. Every notification is an interruption designed by a team of engineers whose job is to maximize engagement, not to protect your focus. So email badges, Slack pings, WhatsApp groups, news alerts, none of these exist to help you. They exist to pull you out of your work and into their app, so turn them off. Now to finish, we're going to bridge them together. Here's how the transition routine and environmental design fit together. The transition routine is internal, as we said. It's the mental bridge. It activates the right identity and primes the right neural networks. But that state is fragile. You can build it in 90 seconds and lose it in 5 seconds if your environment is working against you. Environmental design is the external container. It protects the state that you just switched into. Together, they do something that most productivity advice misses massively. They don't just help you start focused work, they help you stay there. So at this point, we've built 3 layers: sleep, morning activation, and then we've just done the transition and environment. You're showing up rested if you take this on board and action it, of course. You're activating your brain correctly in the morning. You're bridging from home to work deliberately rather than dragging weight into your first block. And the space around you is engineered to protect your focus rather than compete with it. What comes next is the actual experience of doing the work at the highest level. Flow state, the subjective experience of being completely absorbed in what you're doing, where time distorts, self-consciousness disappears, and your cognitive output is dramatically higher than in any other non-flow state. It's not some mystical state reserved for just artists and professional athletes. It has specific entry conditions, and you can build the pathway to it. That's what we're going to cover in the next video. If you want to understand how to enter flow on demand, it's on screen now. Click through, and I'll see you in the next one.